Technically, you can make up whatever system you want and apply it to the cosmos. Why don't any of you astrologers do that? Why do you consistently use the symbolism of the ancients, while reinventing their system and passing it off as your own, which then distorts all history and chronology of that system? The reason everything is in a state of farrago is because you're applying new and improved methods of observation to measurements and calculations, and then you're ascribing it to the ancients as though they had the precise technology that you utilize now. It should be common sense, but when this system of astrology, still in use today, was created, nothing you utilize for observations or measurements existed yet. Among the most obvious details that ought to be accounted for is that people only had the use of their eyes for observations. There were no fancy telescopes, as far as we can tell, nor smoked lenses to allow for looking directly at the sun. If you haven't read A God's Acre for Winds of the Soul, click the image. It is the ultimate book to enlighten you about the ancient universal system of priestcraft that has been used to govern all nations and formulate civilization since time immemorial, the foundation of which is astronomy. The priests are the watchers and namers of the stars, and astrology, their observations are encoded into allegories. I wrote in God's Acre, when numbers are alluded to in mystical texts, they usually represent a cycle or something to do with the cosmos. Osiris was killed by 72 conspirators, which is half the year, or 6 months, each month being divided into 12 parts, a system used in the Hellenic and Babylonian cultures. 12 times 6 is equal to 72. When 70 is used, 72 is likely what it represents. According to Astle, the ancients frequently expressed sums by even numbers, adding what was deficient to complete them, or omitting whatever might be redundant. This mode of reckoning is often used in sacred writings, and was thence introduced into other monuments. In Bishop Walton's treatise on Hebraisms, he wrote, "The Hebrews are accustomed to use round numbers, and neglect the 2 or 3 units which exceed them in certain cases. They say, for example, the 70 interpreters, and the Council of 70, although the number in each case was 72, and in the book of Judges we read, that Abimelech killed 70 of the children of Jerubbaal, although he had but 68. Whatever time of year we're in, the sun blots out half the constellations, or 6 months divided into 12 parts each, 72 parts for 6 months, which would be 144 for the whole year. So this could be allegorized as half of the year conspiring to kill the sun, or the sun's effulgence kills half the constellations, or children, i.e., the winter sun kills the winter constellations during the day while the summer sun kills the summer constellations during the day. Remember this significance of 70, or 72, for you will see it again. This subdivision of the 12 signs into 12 parts each is called dodecatemoria, each corresponding to 2.5 degrees of the ecliptic, bringing the total to 144 dodecatemoria. The pillars of Jachin and Boaz had 100 pomegranates around each of their capitals. 1 Kings 7. 20, 2 Chron 3. 16, 17. This fruit has a star-like flower with 6 leaves or rays at the top of the fruit. 6 times 100 is equal to 600, the Neros, a period of 600 years. 72 were hung around the priest's garment. 72 times 6 is equal to 432. 432 comes from dividing the great zodiacal or precessional year of 25,920 years by 60, and so 432 is the base of the great Indian cycles. See Exodus 28 verses 33 to 35 and Exodus 39 verses 24 to 26 for pomegranates and bells on a priest's garments. Higgins wrote, "It seems to have been a great object with the ancient astrologers to reduce these periods to the lowest point which it was possible to reduce them, without having recourse to fractions, and this might perhaps take place before fractions were invented. Thus we find the Dodecan, 5, was the lowest to which they could come. This, therefore, for several reasons, became a sacred number. In each of the 12 signs of the zodiac of 30 degrees each, they found there were 6 of these dodecans of 5 degrees, and that there were of course 6 times 12 is equal to 72, and 72 times 6 is equal to 432, in the whole circle, forming again the base of their most famous cycle. It was chiefly for these reasons that the two numbers 5 and 6 became sacred, and the foundations of cycles of a very peculiar kind. Jesus has 72 disciples, or half the constellations, months, and year following him around, whatever part of the year he is at in his journey. The other 72, or 6 months, are not with him and you can see them at night. This proves Jesus is the Son. Now you know the symbolism of the College of Cardinals consisting of 72 people, Ptolemy having had 72 men translate the Pentateuch, and the 72 members of the Sanhedrin, though modern sources will obfuscate this by claiming 71. According to Hamlet's Mill, page 59, the sun's position among the constellations at the vernal equinox was the pointer that indicated the hours of the precessional cycle, very long hours indeed, the equinoctial sun occupying each zodiacal constellation for about 2,200 years. The constellation that rose in the east just before the sun, that is, rose heliacally, marked the place where the sun rested. At this time it was known as the sun's carrier, and as the main pillar of the sky, the vernal equinox being recognized as the fiducial point of the system, determining the first degree of the sun's yearly circle, and the first day of the year. When we say, it was recognized, we mean that it was spelled carrier or pillar, and the like. It must be kept in mind that we are dealing with a specific terminology, and not with vague and primitively rude beliefs. I don't rely on modern works such as Hamlet's Hill, however, I mention it because it is getting increasingly more difficult to find resources that aren't defiled by modern astronomers who have continually changed the system of reckoning from the ancient one, yet all the while using the ancient system's terms and symbolism. The ancient system reckoned the traditional age, which relied on the sign that was Lord of the Ascendant an hour before dawn. The reason this is frustrating is because modern astrologers rarely acknowledge the old system and what they have changed about it, so it's easy to confound their new system with the old one. Most of these people are not initiated into the priesthood and have no access to their methodology. It's also possible that reckoning the age this way is a product of the Middle Ages and not necessarily something that was done in ancient times, since they used the Neros, and everything that they prophesied about the New Ages and the Antichrist leading up to the Crusades didn't amount to anything. To be clear, I think using the precision technology to reckon and document everything in the cosmos is a great idea and ought to be done by as many people all over the world as possible. However, most people don't appreciate how the subtleties of the system's changes over the eons is valuable on account of it being another way to organize history chronologically, as well as discover traces of cultural diffusion. People ask me about subjects that I've covered extensively in Spirit World, but for those wondering about what age we are in, I'll include what I published in A Godsacre for Winds of the Soul for my members and how you can verify it for yourself. Become a member to access the rest of this article. If you've never been a member and want a comped month to see if my work is a good fit for you, follow these simple instructions.